I had a lot of pride watching American middle distance and distance runners bring home those medals. It seemed like one race after another. And so I think it's a good sign leading into the Olympics for 800 and up. America has to feel proud and excited for hopefully bringing home some medals in the middle distance and distance events. So,
I remember when I was 15, my coach said, one day you're going to have to deal with politics. Don't let it get to you. I'm like, what does that even mean? I was like, look at me, the politics. But you get to a certain stage where like rules change. Organizations move the goalpost for who they want. There is always a set criteria, and more times than not, that criteria may be 80% true. But that 20%, sometimes that 20% is strong. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Run Your Race show. I'm your host, Akeem.
And Chanelle.
And we have an action-packed show for you all today. But before we get into that, how was your weekend from your perspective?
I think it was pretty good. I would say the highlight was I actually stayed awake to watch some boxing with you on Saturday night. I'm usually like, I'm going to sleep because the fights are too late for me. But I stayed up the whole night. I enjoyed it. And yeah, it was one of the best fights I've ever watched with you. Not that I've watched many, but
you're there. Your presence was there. Usually you don't really last too long, but shout out to you for lasting that long because it was a great fight. It was a great fight. But before we get into our next topic, it is Women's History Month. And so with what just happened at World Indoor Championships, you were the first American 800-meter athlete to win ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you think about that, and this being Women's History Month, what does it make you think of? What comes to mind when you reflect about that race?
He's putting me on the spot, everyone. I did not know that he was going to do this. So thank you for highlighting your love's accomplishment. I just think it's a reminder that, women, we can do amazing things, and I think that's what this month is all about, is just highlighting the accomplishments that women have achieved throughout our history. And I think it's an amazing month. And I thank you for highlighting my accomplishment 10 years ago. Wow. That makes me feel old, but it is truly one of my biggest accomplishments. So thank you.
Hey, we were watching the race the other day. Well, you were watching the race the other day. And, sometimes we don't really appreciate certain things until a little bit later, because when you're in the process of it, that's just what it is. You are expecting to do well, but you never really think about the accomplishment that you actually were done. So
yeah, you're right. I did pull the race up yesterday. I was like, hey, let me watch my 800-meter win from 2014. So yeah, like you said, it's hitting me now how much of a huge accomplishment that was, because at the time it's just like, okay, next thing to accomplish. Like you said, we do have a action-packed show, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the Junior College Championships that just happened this past weekend. But before we dive into some of those highlights from that meet, I think it's important just to discuss, what is a JUCO? I think a lot of young athletes, a lot of parents don't really know that route exists. And it is a route for maybe high schoolers whose grades weren't, quite right coming out of high school, or they didn't take the necessary classes to be accepted into NCAA Division I, Division II schools as a student athlete. And so we want them to know it's not over. There is this route called the junior college route that you can take as a student athlete. And you personally took this route. And so, yeah, let's tell people, where did you go? Why did you end up going the JUCO route, and what your experience was like?
Oh, junior college is a special community, because if you've never had to go through it, then you don't know what we had to go through to get through it, So shout out to all the junior colleges out there, man. Hold your head up. Remember why you're there. You're trying to be there so you can get out of there. All right. So Barton Community College, I'm not going to say one of the sprint community college in America. And I stand every toes down on that one. But for me, my journey to junior college started probably about in the 11th grade when I was starting to get recruited by schools in America. Me being in Canada is a little bit different, and so I didn't know too much about junior college. Honestly, I wasn't really looking to go down south until I started to get recruited. And then I understood, wait a minute, there's other opportunities here to further my education, to get my school paid for, of course. And so I didn't really pay too much attention to it till the 11th grade, started to get all these different recruitment papers when you start to do well. And I think that's one of the things with track and field being so black and white. If you run fast, you jump far, you throw far, you do what you're supposed to do on the track, the rest is going to take care of itself. People are going to find you. So I originally signed to go to Florida State. Shout out to Coach Ken Harden at the time. He's at Auburn now. But we later found out that one of the maths that I took in the 9th grade, the NCAA didn't accept anymore. So I was automatically ruled ineligible, meaning even if I would have got the SAT score that I needed, which I didn't, even if I would have gotten a 4.0 GPA, which I didn't have, one of the maths that I took in the 9th grade, there was a new rule and they didn't accept it anymore. So I had to go junior college. So NCAA was out of the question for me initially. And the initial blow was, it was tough, right? Because you had all this excitement to go down. You're competing with the best of the best, the people you see on TV all the time. And then that kind of goes away. But Coach Ken and my high school coach at the time, Ken Rose, shout out to my guy, Ken Rose, they were like, man, there are other options how we can get Akeem to continue furthering his education and in his speed development. And at the time, it was between Barton Community College and South Plains. There are certain junior colleges that do give full athletic scholarships. There's a couple of them. There's not a lot. South Plains being one, Central Arizona being another, but they don't have a whole lot to give as an NCAA school would have. I think they have maybe about 5 or 6.
Wow.
I don't know if the rule has changed since then, but during my time, it was like 6. And so for me, when I was looking at the schools, South Plains, they had already given up their scholarship for that foreseeable year, even though they wanted me to come. But I was like, man, I don't want to wait a full year. I want to go to school because I know me. It's going to be a lot harder for me to get into the school mode of things. So I took a half scholarship to go to the Barton Community College in Great Bend, Kansas. Exactly. Even if I say it like that, like it's not an exciting city. It's not exciting. The most exciting thing is Walmart. It's 2 hours away from the actual city of Wichita. So going to junior college, man, you got to understand, like, it's not the glitz and glamour of what you see as an NCAA athlete or what you hear. It's for the grind. And what I mean by that is you're there to go to school and you're there to run track or your respective sport. That's it. Don't be looking for no excitement. Don't be looking for a whole bunch of fun. Your resources are limited. And I mean, very limited. We were practicing sometimes and we didn't have, they just built an outdoor facility when I was there. Beautiful, but it's Kansas, it snows. So how are we training indoors? Well, we have a gymnasium and there's a dance team that's there. Sometimes the baseball team is throwing into their area and we're trying to do repeat runs around this gymnasium that's not even really wood. It's just like, it's like a slippery
material.
Yes, a slippery knockoff of like tile.
Oh gosh.
And so like I remember doing block starts from that thing and you would have to, they'd roll out this black mat and you have 15 meters to do your phases and you have to ease up at 10 because if you don't ease up, you're going to slip on that tile because it's so slippery. So when you really want to get serious, you open up the gym. So it gives you another 10 meters and you put your blocks in the gym and you have now about 15, 20 meters to work on your blocks, but you still got to ease up so you don't slip on the mat and the tile. So junior college, you have to be creative. And this is just a brief overview because there's so much more that goes into it. But it forces you to mentally tap in to see what's important to you. If you don't come in with a plan, the junior college is going to get you.
Because it's 2 years, right? And then the goal is to
get out of there in 2 years. And once you get there, your clock starts. So you don't have the 4 years, you have 2 years. You know, that's something that confuses a lot of people. No, you're in college. it starts. So that's just a small overview of it, man. For me, coming in, I was coming off an injury. So my first year was just getting back into things. My second year, I became one of the top recruits in the country and was able to get back to where I once was. But it broke a lot of people. It didn't break me because I've been through worse things. And also my mentality was, I'm going here using as a stepping stone to get out of here. You don't go to junior college to stay. You go to junior college to get out of there. So you can go be seen, so you can go there, but don't get it twisted. Junior college, there are some ridiculous athletes out there, which kind of goes into the national aspect of things. Shouting out to the junior colleges. I just want to highlight a couple of those people. You know what I'm saying? For me, man, got to shout out to the Barton Community College women's team who actually won the national title. Shout out to Coach David Shenick, my coach back in then. I got a lot of love for Coach Dave, man. He's done a great job with that program. And I'm going to throw in a little bit highlighter of my performance athlete that I've seen of the junior college.
Okay.
Tapawan, I know I'm not saying that correctly, man. Maracu, but he goes to New Mexico junior college. Tabari Henry is his coach. He ran 6.63 and 20.47. So going back to what I said, junior college is no joke. You can still run fast, jump far, just limited resources. So that's the junior college in a nutshell.
Yeah. And like you said, a lot of, on the track and field side, a lot of great athletes have gone to junior college and come out of junior colleges. Some of those names are...
I mean, if we're talking about just Barton...
Okay, yeah, let's talk just Barton.
Because, you know, BCC all day. We're talking about Tyson Gay, talking about Veronica Campbell-Brown. We're talking about Tabari Henry as well. We're talking about Alonzo Edwards. Like, the name goes on and on and on. Like, I'm on the list and I ran 10-1 there and I'm not even in the top 10.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how it is. So for those who may not are going to be able to take that Division I route right away, don't get it twisted. Like, there's still great opportunities for you to develop in the classroom and develop as an athlete and run well, jump far, and do everything that you wanted to do. It's just a different way of getting it. So I guess the main point is there's more than one way to get to your destination. You just got to find the right one that works for you with what you have going on. Yeah. Thank you for those highlights, because his times, they're still competitive. Those are great. Like, junior college, you cats still run fast. my first year there, 9-9 won it. So like,
and you guys still have an entire season, just like the NCAA. It's similar in some ways. In other ways, I know it's more of a struggle, but yeah. So I like how you said that there's still a different way to get to that NCAA Division I, because you ended up going to Alabama for 2 years. So yeah, thank you for that. Transitioning into indoor worlds, not going to give a whole recap of the meet, but we watched it. We tuned in. It was a good meet across the board, field, sprint, distance. We are going to give what stood out to us. So I'll go first. I got to give a shout out to Elle St. Pierre, 3,000 meter champion. She is the first American to win the 3,000 meter at Indoor World Championships. And it was a fast race. Sagai from Ethiopia, she took it out. She's like, if you're going to beat me, we're going to have to run fast today.
It's kind of your style.
Yes. So it was, and St. Pierre, she tucked right in and she never let Sagai get away. And at the end, she used her kick and outkicked one of the best distance runners in the world, Ethiopia's Sagai. So it was an incredible race. I know you not necessarily that entertained by distance races, but even you were like, okay, look at this finish, and I think the incredible part is she just had a son, exactly a year ago. And he was there, he was doing those post-race interviews with her. And you could just tell it was a full circle moment for her to be able to bounce back a year after having a baby and become world champion. So that was definitely my top highlight. The second highlight for me was two women who were able to win medals for the first time for their countries. I mean, that just has to be an incredible feeling. We had Thea Lafon from Dominica, I think is how you pronounce it, Dominica, and she won the triple jump, 15:01, her first time over 15 meters in the triple jump, and yeah, the country's first gold medal. I hope that they celebrate her, pay her, throw her a parade, because that is...
Oh, it's coming.
It is incredible. It's incredible. And then Julian Alfred in the 60 meter, we've talked about her before. She was the favorite, but you still got to go out there and you got to perform. And she did that. And she won St. Lucia's first ever medal, ever in the Worlds, Olympics, their first medal ever. So, I mean, you could just see both of their emotion and when they were holding their flags and taking pictures and just crying and giving interviews, and just the pride that they had to represent those smaller nations. And again, I just hope that they are celebrated and receive their flowers, because that is truly amazing. And then the last big highlight for me wasn't one race in particular. It was the last hour of the meet. When we saw Team USA, I'm a little biased, Team USA distance, middle distance, they took home 5 medals in the last hour. Bryce Hoppel popped it off with the men's 800, ran a phenomenal race tactically and brought home the gold. So shout out to him. And then you had the men's 1500, Hocker and Kessler. They got silver and bronze. And then the women came right after and got silver and bronze. That was Hiltz and Mackay. And so it was just, I had a lot of pride watching American middle distance and distance runners bring home those medals. It seemed like one race after another. And so I think it's a good sign leading into the Olympics for the 800 and up. America has to feel proud and excited for hopefully bringing home some medals in the middle distance and distance events. So those were my highlights.
I'm going to share my highlights, and then I got a question for you. Obviously I got to start with the sprints. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about the men's 60, the women's 60, the men's 60, the way how, and again, we don't do live streaming, but so you can't fully get to see our conversation when we're talking about it. And I remember in the semis watching Christian Coleman's race, and I was just like, man, his pattern's a little bit different this year. Mm-hmm. Usually it always kind of feels like he's trying to be the first to get to 60. Mm-hmm. If I can just get to that 60 mark, then, I'll be able to hold it. But this year, for me, from what I've seen, just in his movement, his mannerisms, how he usually runs like clenched fists, but now he's a little bit more relaxed. And he's running through 60. He's setting things up so much better. And you could see he's starting to pull away, right? Mm-hmm. And so how he was able to execute that plan, man, and being able to get another indoor title, mm-hmm. I thought how he won that race execution-wise was really, really good to see. And, Noah Lyles came in second. And there's interviews where he's saying, this is my worst race. You can't say that anymore once you're a 6'4" guy, man. That's out the window, because now you are now one of the fastest in the 60. So these mind games you're trying to play with people, it's nice, but you're not an underrated guy in the event now. You're one of the top ones, and he ran 6:44. And then you got to throw in Akeem Blake, man, the first individual sprint medal since Bolt. So that's 7 years ago. And I know a small part of his story. Don't know it a whole lot, but if you have some time, go try to check out his story, man, and how he used to, sleep on the bus and going from traveling from one part of Jamaica to the other. So for what he's been able to do, has been able to accomplish everything, man. I thought overall it was a phenomenal men's 60. And looking forward to seeing what they do outdoors. Not going to spend too much time on the women's 60 because you mentioned a little bit of it. The fact how Jillian was able to operate under that amount of pressure. She was the favorite. Pressure doesn't always work for people, but she was able to make that pressure work for her and run really well doing it. Swoboda, she came back, ran 6'9" in the semis, and I was just like, man, I think that might be a little too fast because your body doesn't just recover like that quickly. And then Zainab Dasso, who was my sleeper, because I said there's one thing about sports, especially track and field, is consistency breeds to success. And if you are able to be consistent throughout the year, you're going to have a big drop, or at the very least, you're going to be consistent. And she's been consistently around that 7-0 mark, man. So this could be a breakout year for her. Her race pattern seems to be transitioning very well as well, too. So that's something that I always watch out for when it comes to indoors. It's not just about 0 to 60. It's about how you're setting up, how you're getting to 60. Because race pattern outdoors, sprinting is very, very vital, very important. 400, Femke 49.17, that speaks for itself. I think the thing that we've talked about is how smooth she looks as she is running. Phenomenal time. Her teammate, Leaky Claver, 50.16. More times than not, that's winning world sometimes. It's just, you have another person like that. Alexis Holmes, 50.24. Levi Nielsen, a massive PB for her, 50.89. That puts herself in a nice position right there coming outdoors. Alexander Doom, men's 400, man. You're not a sleeper no more, my man. 45.2 national record, Karsten Warholm. Rashid McDonald was an interesting addition to me because he's a 43 guy outdoor. So he was able to come back indoor, ran 45.6, and he's getting into shape. He looked exhausted after every run, but this is a guy who is one of the fastest to ever across that discipline, running 43 points. So if he can stay healthy and keep building on this momentum, man, outdoor is going to be really good for him. And so you talked about Thea Lafont. The last one for me that was a highlight, man, was Tara Davis-Woodall. I mean, how consistent that she has been all year. It's like almost every time that she's about to jump and she's on the runway, you're thinking to yourself, 7 meters, 7 meters, or at least close to it. And if she continues this same amount of consistency outdoors, man, you got to watch out. Yeah. Because she's going to jump out that pit. Long jump, women's triple jump are always extremely competitive. But man, she really showed out at World. So that was a couple highlights for us. What were some of the highlights for you? Let us know in the comment section below. And we have to go with a tough decision when we think about our performer of the week. Who was that for you?
It wasn't tough for me. Okay. Yeah, I think I've picked her probably like every week, but Femke Bol, 2 gold medals. 400 meter, broke her world record again, anchored the gold for the 4x4. And like you said, it's how she looks. It just looks, and I'm sure it's not easy, but it looks easy. She ran 5 400s in 3 days, 2 on Friday, 1 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, ran 5 fast 400s. Let me correct myself. And so she just looks incredible right now. I hope that she gets some rest before outdoor because she's had a long indoor season and it's a long upcoming outdoor season with, of course, the Olympics being the goal. I know there's a lot of talks between her and Sydney McLaughlin in the 400 hurdles. I'm excited. I'm sure this has to give her confidence leading into those Olympics this summer. So shout out to Femke, incredible end to an incredible indoor season. She is my performer of the week.
So I'm staying with the 4 as well, too. I'm going Alexander Doom because he ran some of those same similar rounds that Femke was. I don't remember if he ran the heats of the relay, but America is always a country that people expect to dominate in most things. And the 4x4 relay is one of those things, whether it's indoor or outdoors. You guys have always been a strong team. And so with America and Alexander Doom coming on the back end of it, it's him. And I don't know who the anchor leg was for America, Christopher Bailey, maybe.
Yes.
And so when you have those two neck and neck, you know, more times than not, most people are thinking, man, you know, Bailey is going to be able to take it home. Mm-hmm. But Doom said, nah, man, this is my breakout meet. This is going to be my breakout year. So how he was able to perform under pressure, he wasn't, I mean, Karsten, people thought Karsten was supposed to beat him. So how he was able to perform and then come back and show that, yo, it's no fluke. We got a squad in the relay as well, too. Watch how we do it. Watch how we work. So for him, for me, Alexander Doom is my performer of the week. I guess you have with the 4 this time around. Yeah. So let us know your thoughts. Who was your performer of the week? Let us know in the comment section below.
Yeah. I think that's a good segue because you talked about relays and USA and the strength of our relays. And for those who haven't heard, there was a little bit of controversy in the 4x4 relay at Worlds this past weekend because we saw Noah Lyles in the final of that 4x4. Mm-hmm. That shocked a lot of people because Noah made the team for the 60 meter. There were probably 6-7 guys at World Championships who were there for the 4x4. USA takes a lot of people to go for that 4x4, and they didn't choose those guys to run the final. They chose Noah, and that upset a lot of people. We can speculate why USA did that. No one knows but them. But there's a lot of speculation. The race was on TV. We needed Noah to be on the relay because he is the face of USA track and field, along with Sha'Carri. But you know that's a speculation. Or you know, Noah has voiced that he wants to be on the 4x4 in the Olympics this summer. So maybe this was some type of let's see where he's at. Let's see if he can do it. We don't know why they did it, but they did it, and they've been doing this for years, running people who aren't necessarily 400-meter runners on the relays. We see it. Sydney McLaughlin runs the 4x4. Sometimes Gabby Douglas runs a 4x4. Abby Steiner. These are not 400-meter specialists, but the USA uses other people to run the 4x4. So this is not new for us. We had Fred Curley, who seemed pretty upset, according to his social media accounts, because he is previously a 400-meter specialist. And he's saying, I've been wanting to run the 4x4 at these outdoor championships the past 3 years, and you guys don't let me. So you guys have favorites. Noah's a favorite. Noah's saying, hey, you could have came to this meet and ran as well. And so there's been some back and forth. I honestly don't think this is ever going to change. USA is going to do what they're going to do. To me, it's not even clear how you get on the relay. It just seems like you have to be on the team, and anybody on the team can be on the relay. So I feel like we're always going to have this type of madness. Nobody's ever going to be happy. I know I would be upset if I was one of those 400-meter guys who was at the meet this past weekend and I wasn't selected. That has happened to me before. I remember I was invited to pin relays for Team USA. I don't remember if it was for a 4x8 or a sprint medley, but I thought I was running. You know, you invite me and I think I'm going to run. I get there, they're like, no, you're the alternate. And that's, I changed my whole training. I flew out here. Maybe I wouldn't have come if you would have asked me to be the alternate. I don't know, but I think they need to be a little bit more upfront about how they can tell these guys there may be a chance you're not going to run. Like they could have told me you may not run, and that kind of changes your expectations because it's kind of the shock factor that upsets you. Like, what do you mean Noah's running and I'm not? I think it just shocked a lot of people. But at the end of the day, Noah did his thing. He kept the lead. He split 45 and some change. You can't be mad at him. They didn't come in second because of Noah. Anybody saying that I think is wrong, in my personal opinion. But yeah, I think this is going to continue to be an issue for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, I think political, how do I want to say, political adaptations are in every country. I remember when I was 15, my coach said, Akeem, one day you're going to have to deal with politics. Don't let it get to you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what does that even mean? I was like, look at me, the politics. But you get to a certain stage where like rules change and organizations move the goalpost for who they want. So there is always a set criteria, and more times than not, that criteria may be 80% true. But that 20%, sometimes that 20% is strong, where it's, because this person is hot right now, because they're running really well right now, because they may be getting the most public eyes. Let's put him here, move him here. So it's just like people are always going to move the goalpost. And it's one of those things where you can let it get to you and frustrate you and make you focus more on the political side and make you kind of lose some of that love for the sport, or just say, you know what, man, I just got to train hard. I got to put myself in a better position, because I dealt with that in 2012 and it wasn't the greatest thing. Like you said, I was told I was going to run in the 4x1. And then a week before, someone who did not run the 100 ran fast. And then all of a sudden I was kicked off. And so I didn't find that out until a day before the actual relay. And so if you would have told me that I wasn't running, you went with somebody else, I could have understood. Right. But don't let me thinking that I'm going to run and the day before tell me, because again, I could have changed my whole pattern. I could have been in chill mode. Could have been eating dessert. I could have been enjoying it. So it's one of those things where it's like, man, in Fred's situation, I understand completely when he's been asking, and he was a 400 guy. He probably moved down to say, yo, I can run both. Who's to say? So it's an unfortunate situation. I kind of feel bad for who got kicked off. But at the same time, he did run well. He didn't run terrible. It just is what it is, man. And people move the goalposts for who they want to move the goalposts for. And so if you want to run professionally, you got to keep this in mind too. You may run the fastest you've ever ran. Doesn't mean you run the relay.
Yeah. And I've heard, 4x1, 4x4, I've always, mostly 4x1, I've heard it's not always about putting the fastest guys out there. And I'm always like, what? Because for the 4x8, it's about putting the fastest girls out there. So I've always thought that was interesting. But yeah, that's another topic for another day. But yeah, I can see both sides. And like I said, I don't really see this changing anytime soon.
So, again, as Chanelle said, I don't see it changing anyway. Again, at the end of the day, people are going to be people. They all have favorites. And they also have people that they would not like to be around too much. Different conversation for a different day. Let's move forward because there is action this weekend. What action? I'm talking about the NCAA Championships indoors.
Yeah, and the pros are done, huh?
The pros are done. It's outdoor time.
But the collegiates
still got to get through here for it to be outdoor time. And we could talk about, give you seed times and this and that back and forth. But like, it is hard to make an NCAA Indoor Championships. I can't speak too much about this because I never made an indoor NCAA championship. I didn't get there, but you did. So speak to us a little bit about how tough it is to get there, because it's kind of easier outdoors than it is indoors.
Yeah. I mean, my freshman year, I didn't make it. And how you make it, it's what I like about indoor is it's very black and white. There's no qualifying meet to go to indoor NCAAs like there is outdoor. Outdoor, you have to go to regionals, you have to come top whatever, and that's how you make it. Indoor, top 16 on this list, the top 16 fastest times in the country go to indoor NCAAs. And it's very black and white. This year, the cutoff times, the last time in, I mean, these times, it's crazy how fast these collegiates had to run to get there. But like you said, it's hard. I didn't make it my freshman year, but sophomore, junior, senior, I got a better understanding. Like, okay, it's going to take 203, 204 to make the indoor NCAA meet. And so Coach Clark and I, we knew we could do that, So, but yeah, it's all about time indoor. It's all about time. Like I said, 16 in each event, except for the relays, the 4x4 and the DMR, they take top 12. So it's cutthroat. 16 is not a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of people.
And we were looking at the cutoff times. In the men's 60, it's 6:59. Right? Like my personal best is 6:51. And I was a pro at that point, right? So that's a crazy amount. The question I wanted to ask you that I missed talking about worlds, because it goes hand in hand here. People get to these championships, athletes get to these championships, and they don't run their race. Like I felt like when we were watching the women's 8, I was like, yo, I learned more about the women's 8 when we got together. And you've taught me a lot more things about it. And so when I'm seeing these girls go, I'm like, yo, 63 seconds? And that's weak. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So when it comes to running your race, what advice would you give or would you say? Because I didn't like how the World Indoors Women's 8 ran. I thought they were running scared.
Yeah, no one wanted to lead. No one wanted to be that person to take the lead, which is strange because in the first 2 rounds, they got after it. They ran sub 2. I saw some 158s in the first round, 159s. And so to see them kind of hold back in that last round and come through the 463, like that's pedestrian. That's slow, And so I don't know. It could have been a little fatigue. They did have 3 rounds. When I ran, I only had 2 rounds, but they ran 3 800s, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Maybe they were a little tired because, like I said, those first 2 rounds were extremely fast. But to answer your question, running your race, like I always had a race plan that JJ and I came up with. And in the 800, anything can happen. So you have, even if your plan doesn't go to plan in the race, you have to be able to adapt like that. Because like I said, anything can happen in the 8. So yes, it is important to have a plan, but you also have to be adaptable. You have to be able to run from the front, run from the middle, run from the back. And so you have to be able to adjust and make those on the fly decisions. And that's something that I didn't really get good at until I got a little bit older. And those adjustments as the race was going. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their plan was in the 800 this weekend. It just seemed like it just looked like nobody wanted to lead the race. And I think even if you're not someone like me who enjoys leading, you should be able to lead. And I think the woman who ended up winning from I think she was from Ethiopia. I think she did lead from start to finish. So maybe that was her plan, to get to the front and then slow it down and then use her kick. So I don't know. But it was a strange final 800 meter because I predicted that 158 was going to win it. And I think maybe 201 ended up winning it. So
yeah, I'm expecting a fast, far jumping, high jumping, throwing weekend for the collegiate athletes, because they're going to have a plan and they're going to lead with their plan. And so I'm looking forward to seeing it. Let us know what you're looking forward to seeing the most. Since we're on this discussion of like planning and running the plan, sometimes the plan doesn't go according to plan. So how is it that one is able to adapt to the plan? Like, you're just talking about, you said sometimes the 800 isn't about speed, it's about tactics. But I'm a sprinter, it's all about speed. You know what I'm saying? But when, for example, in sprinting, you're always expecting the weather to be great. But sometimes you're running into a -3 wind, or it starts raining and you're just like, oh, well, what do I do? How do I maneuver through this? So when we talk about adapting the plan, it doesn't have to be sports related, but what does it make you think of? What comes to mind?
You go first. I love the example you just said with the weather. So what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, in the sporting space and the weather, man, you always look at it from an optimistic standpoint of the best possible case scenario, the best possible situation, and that's 2.0 wind, and that's sunny and it's hot. But when that does not happen, I think for me, whenever things don't go according to my plan, man, like I take a second to say, yo, this sucks. Like every time I go race in the rain, I'm just like, man, this is terrible. And then I have to get it out and then work my brain around it and say, okay, great. I did bring a raincoat just in case. right? And I think you kind of go back to your foundation, because your race plan doesn't change, but the strategy might. And so when it comes to adapting to the plan, man, for me, the one thing that has always helped me is remembering that just because I have to adapt doesn't mean I throw away the plan. Just because I have to adapt doesn't mean that the destination changes. It's just I have to find a different way how to get there. And it may take a little bit longer because now there's a little block in this normal part that I thought I got to go around. Maybe I got to take a step back, wait a little bit, and then go forward. So for me, it has always just been remembering the foundation and not letting the moment get too big that I start taking myself out up here. Because whatever you take yourself out of mentally, your body physically is going to follow. So even though it was cold, even though it was raining, I was like, man, I still got to execute the best of my ability and to make sure that I don't take myself out of potentially running fast because it's raining, because it's snowing, which I've ran both in. So that's what it makes me think of. And I take that same principle and apply it to life.
Yeah, and I think just piggybacking off of you, like when that did happen, when it was windy or rainy or cold, like I would say as well, like this sucks, but then also say, well, this sucks for everyone. Like everyone is dealing with the same elements, so it's not.
About them.
It's like everyone has to deal with this. So, but I think adapting to the plan, and I'm going to probably talk about this many times because it was a big part of my story. It's injuries for me. The plan was, I had to adapt when I got injured or when I had a health issue. And like you said, it's the destination doesn't change. The goal doesn't necessarily change. It's just, how am I going to get there? That changes. And just that's what I think of when I think of adapting the plan. Injuries and having to say, okay, I can't get there this way, but I can do X, Y, and Z. So it's just all about coming up with an alternative route and working with your team to come up with a different way to get to the same destination.
And it's not easy, but man, it sure is possible. So that's pretty much all that we've covered today. We've covered a lot, a bunch of different things. Obviously, this is the last indoor thing that we're going to be talking about, because after this, outdoors already started for some countries. So we look forward to having a different discussion next week, and we'll see what the world of track and field has in stores for us, because it's always changing. It's always something to talk about. So before we go, if you like the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe before you go. Share this with a friend, and definitely let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. So we'll see you next week.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.